Story number 1. Until now, I've only been telling other people's stories. But today, I'm going to share a story that happened to me, personally, during the time I was working part-time as a student. This story is called The Ghost Woman in the Bubble Tea Shop. If I remember correctly, it was during my first year of university. Back then, I had plenty of free time. In my freshman year, I didn't have many classes, so I looked for a part-time job. I saw a bubble tea shop that was about to open and applied to work there. The shop was mainly takeaway, so the space was really small, maybe only 2 to 2.5 meters wide. Structurally, when you walk in, the left side is the drink preparation counter for staff. Further in on that same left side is a storage room. Next to that storage area is a small empty space where we kept chairs and some equipment. Beyond that were 2 restrooms. I remember noticing something odd about the restrooms from day one. The men's room was ordinary, just a small mirror and a plain white neon light. But the women's restroom next to it was slightly larger, and the owner had installed a full-length mirror for customers. What was strange was that the lighting in the women's restroom was yellow. So every time I went in there, it felt darker than the men's restroom. One of my co-workers was about 2 years older than me and was very sensitive to spiritual matters. He could sense ghosts very easily. From day one, the shop was doing well. Then, one Sunday during my lunch shift, from 12 to 5 p.m., business was slow, so there were only 2 of us working. I was the drink maker behind the counter, and that spiritually sensitive guy was the server, taking orders outside. Since the restrooms faced the prep area, I couldn't see them. Only people sitting on the waiting chairs or staff standing outside could see the restroom's entrance. That day, a female customer pointed at the waiting chairs and sat there, awaiting her bubble tea. When I finished her drink, I passed it to that coworker, and as he was bagging it, he suddenly looked toward the women's restroom entrance, startled, and dropped the cup. The customer, myself, and he were all there. She asked, "Is everything okay? Did you see something?" He replied shakingly, "Oh my God, I just saw a lady walk from that other door over there into the women's restroom. She wore a matching colored traditional baba outfit, brown like bubble tea, with tiny yellow flowers. When I saw that, I nearly died of fright." The customer fell silent. Because he'd dropped the drink, I made a new one for her. Then I asked him for details again, and he confirmed the story. I was terrified. I get goosebumps just thinking about it. Even though he sees ghosts often, he's very easily scared. He was stuttering as he spoke. He immediately pulled out his phone and called the owner. "Boss, I just saw something. I'm really scared." The owner replied, "All right, I know. I'll tell the landlord's wife." Then the owner told us what the landlord's wife said. "That lady just doesn't like the yellow light. Change it to another color." She didn't mention a ghost, but after hearing that, we were already scared. All the staff became uneasy. From that day, the owner brought in a ceramic incense burner, Luhing, and put it on the 3rd shelf in the small storage room. The next day, I had the lunch shift again. A coworker arrived late, so I had to work alone. I stuck close to the prep counter near the door. avoiding the storage area. Suddenly, the owner came in, carrying a lunchbox of ribs, went into the storage room, opened the box, poured fish sauce on it, and prayed to the lady. I thought he'd come to chat, but he went in just to pray. He said, "Beware of that lady. She only likes to stay in the storage room, so tell everyone to avoid that area." Around half an hour later, about 2:30 p.m., I went there to get sugar and accidentally saw the lunchbox. The food looked slimy, as though leftovers kept overnight, damp and unappetizing. That freaked me out. My job required me to frequently go in and out of storage to check inventory, especially at the start and end of the day. The girls were terrified. If we closed late, we had to sit in the storage area to eat because there was nowhere else. Every time I went in to check, I felt like I was being watched. From that day on, every staff member knew that the lady was present, though we didn't know who she was or where she came from. One day, the owner talked to the landlord's wife, and she told him, the lady used to be the original homeowner, and while pregnant, she had a conflict with her husband's family, felt depressed, and hanged herself in that exact women's restroom. The landlord's wife assured us that her spirit wasn't malicious. She only didn't like the yellow light, and if we worshipped her regularly, she would bless us. From then on, during every shift, we had to give offerings. We also noticed something odd. I rarely burned the tapioca pearls until now. But after this began, whenever we forgot or delayed making offerings, the pearls would burn at the bottom of the pot, especially the black sugar pearls. I had to stir constantly, otherwise they'd clump and stick to the pot. On shifts when we skipped offerings or did them late, the pearls scorched badly. Despite being scared, mainly because the shop performed well, the benefits were good, and the staff were friendly, I didn't want to quit. Eventually, the owner chose 3 shift leaders among us. I was the youngest and became a leader. As a shift leader, I supervised others, closed the shop, checked lights, and, importantly, burned joss paper, fruit, and offerings for the lady every night. Especially on full moon or significant lunar days, we had to be extra elaborate. If we did big offerings, business did well. One day at the end of my shift, the previous leader left me a note. When offering fruit, use types different from those we sell, e.g. dragon fruit or pear, not oranges or pomegranates, which we already use. But that leader didn't follow directions. He used store-bought oranges and pomegranates. When I came in for the next shift and opened the fridge, the oranges had black spots. Not rotten, not infested, just strange. The pomegranates had mushy, juice-run seeds. I called the manager, who called the leader. He apologized. I didn't know. I just used random fruit. He was reprimanded. That same day, the shop hired a new manager, capable but frail-looking. I was working the afternoon shift, around 3 p.m. He went into the restroom to check if the morning shift had cleaned it well. I was outside working when I suddenly heard him scream. He ran to the counter and fainted. We thought he had low blood sugar. Then he told us he'd opened the women's restroom door and saw a woman standing in front of the mirror, staring at him. Then he realized she had no legs. He was terrified and passed out. From that moment on, he believed in her presence. Managers told us not to hire exorcists, just keep offering and she'd protect us. We didn't care. They were giving us money, and we just wanted to work. But the earlier leader, the one who messed up the fruit, went to the landlord's wife and asked for the lady's details, name and birth date, so he could hire a spirit medium to remove her. The landlord's wife wouldn't give it. The spirit was close to her and was protective. But the leader insisted and brought a shaman into the shop to try to capture the spirit. The manager was furious. He feared that would anger her. He warned the leader, "If you do that, you'll be cursed." After that, whenever I had an evening shift, I had to stay late to check lights off, and especially go to the cabinet near the women's restroom to get little cakes, joss paper, and music offerings to burn at the shop entrance. Often I left at midnight or later, so I didn't reach home until 1 a.m. After a while, I became haunted. I was terrified of grabbing those little cakes, the paper money, joss bowls, then going out to burn incense, sticking it into the tree in front of the shop. On nights I did the offerings, I'd arrive home late. Eventually, I became extremely frightened. One night, after returning home late, I hadn't even showered yet. I took out my exercise book to study. I had a test at 7 a.m. the next morning. My headboard was against the window, which I always kept shut. Around 1:30 a.m., while I was studying, suddenly a strong wave of scent wafted in through the window, a mixture of incense and burning joss paper, horrible like rotting ash. I wondered if it was just my mind playing tricks since I burned that stuff every night. While thinking, the fan beside my feet, which had been running normally, suddenly made a loud rattling noise. The guard flew off and hit my hand, cutting it. The scar's still there. The next morning, I quit immediately. During my time working there, I often went drinking coffee late at night with friends. One of them was that guy who was sensitive to spirits. Next time, I'll tell you the stories from nights out with him. Let me know what you think of this story in the comments below. Story number 2. If you're someone who enjoys taking motorbike trips to Vung Tau, then you definitely shouldn't skip this ghost story I'm about to tell. This story was sent to me by a viewer, and I found it really intriguing. So I decided to share it here. It's a true account from the sender and their significant other during a motorbike road trip from Saigon to Vung Tau. The storyteller is from Ben Tre, so when they got off work around 3 p.m., they and their partner, along with 2 other friends, decided to ride from Ben Tre up to Saigon and then head straight to Vung Tau for a fun trip. By 3 p.m., they had already hit the road. The storyteller rode with their partner while the other 2 friends shared another motorbike. When they got to Nguyen Van Linh Street in Ho Chi Minh City, the 2 friends suddenly changed their minds. They didn't feel like going anymore and chose to just hang out in Saigon instead. So, only the storyteller and their partner decided to continue the journey to Vung Tau without hesitation. Around 7:30 p.m., the couple had just crossed the Cat Lai ferry. After the ferry, the girl opened Google Maps to look for a shortcut to get there faster. Somehow, the app led them into a narrow, pitch-dark alley. They kept riding straight through it until they stumbled upon a military zone. There, they encountered 2 soldiers who immediately stopped them and said, "Don't go any further. This area has a high risk of robbery. You've gone the wrong way. Turn back." When I read the comments on this story, I noticed many others had also been misdirected by Google Maps while heading to Vung Tau, getting led straight into this exact military zone. The soldiers always had to redirect people out, warning that the area is either a dead end or too dangerous due to frequent robberies. At that moment, it had started to rain lightly. The couple thanked the soldiers and turned around. All they saw ahead was a rubber tree forest. No houses, no lights, nothing. Going further would have meant risking being robbed, or worse. The storyteller said they already felt a bit creeped out. It was already past 8 p.m. They continued riding until they reached a T-junction near Non-Troc, where Google Maps then directed them down a small road next to a gas station. The road was narrow, but in the beginning there were houses along both sides. About 1 kilometer in, the houses became sparse, and after another 2 to 3 kilometers, there were no houses at all. Just endless rows of okra plants on both sides, and the road was completely dark. That's when they noticed the road had changed from asphalt to red dirt. It had started raining harder, and the path was becoming muddy. It was now close to 9 p.m., and everything around them was pitch black and deserted. The boyfriend, who was riding ahead, asked if Google Maps was still guiding them the right way. The girl reassured him, saying that the app still showed they were on the correct route, and that up ahead she could see distant lights from moving vehicles. She thought they were about to hit the main road, so she insisted they keep going. This is where the story takes a chilling turn. Around 9 p.m., with the rain pouring harder, they still hadn't reached a single house until suddenly they passed by an abandoned mansion. The girl described it as eerily similar to the infamous haunted villa in Dalat. Then, as if by fate or bad luck, the moment they rode past the mansion, their motorbike's headlight flickered and went out, and then the engine died. The bike wouldn't start again. Panicked, they tried to get the bike going, but it slipped in the mud and fell over. Surrounded by nothing but rubber trees and complete darkness, no people, no vehicles, and not a single house in sight, they were terrified. They checked the time on their phones, just past 9 p.m. With no one around to help and the motorbike dead, they somehow found the strength to start pushing it through the mud. Suddenly, both of them fell into a muddy ditch. That's when they snapped out of their panic and realized how serious the situation was. The boyfriend shouted, "Forget the bike! Grab the backpack and money, let's run!" But the girl insisted on trying to pull the motorbike back up. They struggled, but somehow, maybe with help from their ancestors, as she said, they managed to lift the bike back onto solid ground. Miraculously, the bike started again. She even remembered losing her slipper in the ditch, but was so scared that she didn't even bother to pick it up. They just ran, half alive, half dead, back toward the gas station. When they arrived, soaking wet and covered in mud, the gas station attendant was shocked. He asked, "Where the heck were you two just now to end up looking like this?" They explained that they had followed Google Maps into that small road next to the station. The attendant's face changed. He told them they were unbelievably lucky. He said, "You guys were either blessed by your ancestors or had a guardian spirit with you. If the ghosts didn't get you, the robbers might have. No one would have known. Apparently, that whole area is covered in dense rubber forests, completely uninhabited and dangerous." That's where the story ends. The storyteller didn't say whether they eventually made it to Vung Tau or not, but I imagine they were probably given better directions after that terrifying experience. She said she was haunted by that night for a whole month afterward. Later, she realized she had accidentally selected the walking directions mode on Google Maps instead of driving, which explained why it led them down such narrow paths. Even though this story didn't happen to me personally, I still got goosebumps reading it. I've also been on late-night rides before, and the idea of breaking down in the middle of nowhere, especially in a rubber forest, is just horrifying. I honestly don't know what I would have done in their place. So if you ever plan a trip to Vung Tau and decide to cross the Cat Lai Ferry, please make sure your GPS is set correctly. Avoid those dark, deserted paths and stay safe because you never know what's really out there. Story number 3. Late Night Stroll on Cantho Bridge and the Fated Night of Terror. There's this guy I knew from high school who had been following the horror stories I told online. One day he reached out and wanted to share his own terrifying experience, something that happened to him and his girlfriend one night on the Cantho Bridge. He's from Binh Thuy, Cantho, and he worked as a sales rep traveling often to Long An. His girlfriend lived in Binh Minh, Vinh Long. Every 2 weeks he'd come home to visit her and his family. Everything started because of the girl's father. Her dad worked transporting firewood along the Hao River. One day, while boating near the foot of the Cantho Bridge, he noticed something strange. A brand new pink women's helmet floating upside down in a bed of water hyacinths. It had a flip-down visor and looked expensive. It was too pristine to ignore, so he steered his boat over and picked it up. He cleaned it and brought it home, hanging it on their helmet rack. At the time, his daughter, the guy's girlfriend, was studying in Cantho, so she wasn't home and didn't know anything about the helmet. The next day, she came home and slept in late since she didn't have class. Her father had already left for work that morning. While napping, she had a terrifying dream. She felt someone crouched near her feet, lightly stroking her legs. Suddenly, the figure yanked her legs hard, jolting her awake. At first, she thought it was just a nightmare, until she saw her pillow way above her head, her body having slid down the bed. She realized she had actually been pulled. Freaked out, she told her mother, but her mom brushed it off. "You're crazy. There are no ghosts in this house." The next day, her boyfriend, our storyteller, returned from Long An after nearly a month away. He was eager to see her, so instead of stopping to rest, he drove straight to Cantho, arriving around 9:10 p.m. After a quick break at home, he dressed up and went to pick her up. She'd already gotten ready too. But here's where things went wrong. She wore the pink helmet her dad had picked up from the river. He asked her, "It's late. Where should we go?" She suggested, "I heard there's a lady who sells amazing tofu dessert at the Quangtrung Bridge late at night. People line up even at 2 a.m. He was intrigued. He had never heard of it, despite being a local. She called a friend to confirm, and the friend said they only start selling around 1:30 or 2 a.m. So the couple decided to first head over to Tran Phu Street to grab some fruit salad to kill time, then swing by Quang Trung afterward. While crossing the bridge, the night air was cool and pleasant. The girlfriend said, "Let's stop here for a bit and enjoy the breeze." They parked the bike mid-bridge. Since they hadn't seen each other in a while, they started kissing and cuddling. After a few minutes, she asked him, "How have you been? Lately, something weird happened at home. Yesterday, I was sleeping and felt someone pull my leg. I was terrified. I told my mom, but she didn't believe me." He responded casually, "That's nothing. I get sleep paralysis all the time in my room. These things, they just try to scare you. Ghosts can't really hurt us. You should fear the living more than the dead." His tone was dismissive, and she got quiet. Then she said, "Don't say things like that. Spirits don't haunt you for no reason. Maybe someone did something wrong to them, and just because you're spiritually heavy doesn't mean they can't get to you." They changed the subject and continued riding across the bridge. They still had time before the tofu vendor opened, so they wandered around, eventually making their way back to Cantho Bridge for another stroll. Again, they stopped mid-bridge to chat and share another moment. At one point, the guy needed to pee, badly. Without thinking, he climbed up by the railing and urinated off the side. His girlfriend stood nearby, shielding him from passing traffic. He described feeling a sudden chill while relieving himself. Afterward, as they leaned on the railing chatting, he suddenly felt someone wrap their arm around his back and pinch him, hard. Startled, he turned around and said, "Why'd you pinch me just now?" She looked confused. "I didn't." "Yes, you did. You reached behind me and pinched my back." "No, I really didn't." Now he was unnerved. They quickly got on the bike and left. As they neared the turnaround point, they saw a group of children riding bicycles on the bridge, laughing, shouting, making a ruckus. He asked, "Why are there kids riding bikes this late?" She replied, "I don't know. That's strange." As they passed the kids, they suddenly went quiet. A few moments later, he checked his mirror. They had vanished, having turned off the road, but the bridge had no exits there. Where did they go? Feeling uneasy, he told her, "Sleep over at my place tonight. I'll take you home tomorrow. Let's not stay out late like this again." She agreed. Their families knew each other well, and they'd been dating for years, so it wasn't a big deal. As they rode on, approaching the main span of the Cantho Bridge, his clutch-style Exciter 135 suddenly sputtered. The engine made a weird tack, tack, tack sound and died. He assumed he mishandled the clutch, but even after restarting, it wouldn't turn over. They had to push it for a while. After some playful banter, it finally started again. They arrived at Quang Trung Bridge, which was under construction at the time. Vendors sold desserts right on the bridge. They parked and crossed the road, just as a group of 4 friends, 2 guys, 2 girls, also arrived. But he noticed something strange. A 5th girl seemed to be following the group, but didn't quite belong. She wore a tank top and short pants, while the other 2 girls were in pajamas, obviously dressed for a late-night snack before bed. As he and his girlfriend stood at the vendor stall, the lady selling tofu glanced at them and joked, "3 people, but only ordering 2 bowls? Who's going without?" He replied, "No, just the 2 of us." He turned to look. The strange girl had walked away to sit elsewhere. They sat and ate quietly. Afterward, his girlfriend said she needed to pee. She asked the vendor where she could go. The seller pointed to the embankment beneath the bridge. There were stone steps leading down to the river. At first, she saw some guys drinking nearby and felt shy, so she asked her boyfriend to take her further down where it was quieter. He waited by the bike while she descended. But only a moment later, she returned. He asked, "You're done already? That was fast." She didn't answer, just said, "Let's go home." He asked again while they were riding, "Seriously, that was fast. Did you even go?" No response. After a while, she finally said, "Let's just go home." He asked again, "Are you feeling sick or something?" She still didn't reply, then muttered a soft, "Mm-hmm." At this point, you've probably figured it out. The girl on the bike wasn't his girlfriend anymore. It was the spirit of the woman who owned the helmet, now back to reclaim what was hers. Back at the embankment, the real girlfriend had just finished peeing and looked around. Her boyfriend was gone. Worse, her phone was in the bike's trunk. Panicked, she started crying, muttering Buddhist prayers, hoping nothing bad had happened. She walked back up to the drinking men, afraid but desperate, and asked to borrow a phone. She tried calling him over and over, but got no response. Meanwhile, the guy was now driving toward the wrong direction, back to Cantho Bridge instead of his house. He felt like something was guiding him, controlling his movements. Neither he nor the figure behind him spoke a word. When they reached the bridge, his phone buzzed non-stop, but he refused to answer, focusing only on driving. Going uphill, the bike felt unbelievably heavy, as if someone was pulling it backward. Going downhill, it sped up like someone was pushing, almost too fast to brake. At the base of the bridge was a large roundabout area, muddy and overgrown. For some reason, he felt compelled to stop. He parked, looked around, and realized his girlfriend wasn't behind him. So who had he been carrying? He felt frozen, like something had hexed him. He wanted to scream, but couldn't. His throat was tight, like someone had cut off his voice. As he stood there, stunned, he saw a horde of figures emerging from the roundabout, kids, elders, men and women, all closing in. One old woman in a black silk pajama set, with both knees torn open, pointed at his face and growled, "If you tell anyone, I'll snap your neck." Her voice was deep, guttural, inhuman. Then the children tackled him to the ground and stomped on his chest repeatedly until he blacked out. When he came to, his chest hurt like hell, like someone had just crushed it. He could barely breathe. Looking around, he saw he was covered in mud and alone. It was still night. His bike was nearby, tipped over, sandals missing. He got up, terrified, and finally answered a call. His girlfriend was sobbing, asking where he'd gone, why he left her. He couldn't answer. His voice barely worked. Back on her end, she'd begged strangers to help find him, but most were afraid she was setting them up for a robbery. Finally, a kind man lent her a phone right as he called back. They met near Big C, and the moment she saw him, covered in bruises, soaking wet, shoeless, she burst into tears. They went straight to his house. By 4 a.m., his family was horrified at their condition. He collapsed and fainted from exhaustion. The girlfriend explained everything, but she didn't yet know what had happened to him at the roundabout. His parents lit incense at the ancestral altar and prayed for the spirit to release him. Over the next few days, both he and his girlfriend fell sick, bedridden. She recovered quickly, but he remained ill. 3 or 4 days later, he insisted on going to a wedding in Long An. No one wanted him to go, but he did anyway. On the way back, at around 6 p.m. in Vinh Long, a truck sideswiped him and he crashed. His arm was broken. While in the hospital, the girl visiting next to his bed was also injured. Her mother, a Buddhist nun, spoke to his girlfriend and said, "Since you arrived, I've seen a young woman following you around, searching you, like she's looking for something." The girlfriend instantly understood. She called her mom, who asked her dad. He confessed, "Yeah, I picked up that pink helmet from the river. It looked new, so I brought it home." They immediately brought the helmet to a temple in Vinh Long, where a monk confirmed the spirit was dangerous. The girl had quarreled with her family and committed suicide, not by jumping off the Canto Bridge, but by crashing into the river in despair. Her helmet came off, floating away separately. The monk said, "Objects of the dead carry their energy. They will always come back to reclaim them. Never take what isn't yours, even more so from the dead." They held a ceremony offering a vegetarian meal and sincere apologies, not just for taking the helmet, but also for the guy's careless words, mocking spirits. From that day on, neither of them ever dared cross Canto Bridge past 10 p.m. again. If you made it to the end, leave a comment and let others know what you think of this terrifying true story. Bye-bye.